Okay, what's up, y'all? I ain't been here in a minute. If people walk in here, it's because I'm in the break room, relax. But we're just gonna have a little chit chat about Esther. I just ate some lasagna, drinking some diluted cranberry juice. I was about to say something, but I digress. Anyways, we just gonna talk a little bit about Esther because I've been in Esther for a minute now, or like I'll go to John, skip, come back. I've been in Esther for since December. It's about to be February. And I don't know, I still always am like when I'm reading it, it's more commentary, it's more thoughts, more things. So I have been recently running from the word myself, so maybe y'all can help me out and we can read it together. But I have been going to sleep with it on, just try to, like sometimes spiritual warfare be like just stupid. But I went to a revival one night, and I remember it was Pastor Larry McReynolds. It was October 18th, and he said, read the word, hear the word, do the word, be the word. So when I can't read the word, I hear the word. When I can't hear the word, I do the word. If I do the word, I'll be the word. So that's just a little whatever, whatever. So let me go ahead and read this because as I'm reading this, I'm like, dang, like, I don't know, like the commentary in my head, I feel like I just need to talk about it. So it says, we starting at Esther chapter 1, verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus. This is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 107, over 107 and 20 provinces. Now, since I've been doing my study on Esther, so this was King Xerxes, like Xerxes, that the guy that they taught us in history class. Yes, that was him. And when you think about it, like, of course, there is no king that's higher than the King of Kings, but this was a king. And when I think about this, because later on we're gonna talk about Haman and Haman's role in Esther. So the what really caught my attention is a king or a kingdom is only as big or as great or as grand or as efficient as his counselors, his princes, the people that are under him. He is only as good as his members. Like the head only matters if it have the neck and the body attached to it. So for him to have that many providences and to do all that, he wasn't just great, but his team was great too. And later on, it's going to talk about how they really respected and honored, giving credit where it's due, keeping record of people that are doing great things, because that's how Mordecai gonna get his position. So now let me go on. Let me keep going. So, verse 2, that in those days when the king Ahasuerus sat at the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan the palace, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants. The power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of the provinces being before him. When he shewed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days, even 180 days. And when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan the palace, both unto great and small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace. Let's stop right there. So he was coming back from war. So he was trying to, I don't know who exactly it was, but he was in war with people and they were just in constant war for like 3 years. Just in war and war and war. They wasn't really getting nowhere. So I don't know if they took a break or if he won because that really wasn't that important to me, truth be told. But I do feel like that had to be mentioned because now they're about to have a party. I'm just about to give y'all a little. When it says that, and when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan the palace, both unto great and small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace. So at this point, everybody in the inner courts, they partying or whatever. And it's also going to talk about how he let them just drink and do stuff, very, very much weird stuff going on. So if you watch, now I had assignment in class and it was going over Edgar Allan Poe's The Red Death. So we had to watch a movie about it. And I couldn't help but when I'm watching that movie, it made me think exactly about Ahasuerus when he had all them people coming to his palace and they was doing stuff. Now it was an older movie, so it wasn't as vulgar. But I don't even watch scary movies or weird stuff like that. But I had to watch it for an assignment. But I couldn't help but think how biblically accurate that movie was, because it was a Christian in there and stuff like that. But it was very biblically accurate. But that'll be a good representation of what I'm talking about if you do want to go see. And when these days were, already read that, when now we're on verse 6, chapter 1, verse 6. Where were white, green, and blue hangings, fastened with cords and fine linen and purple, to silver rings and pillars of marble, and the beds were of gold and silver upon a pavement of red, and blue and white and black marble. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one from another, a royal wine in abundance according to the state of the king. And the drinking was according to the law. None did compel, for so the king was appointed to all the officers of his house, that they should not according to every man's pleasure. So during this time, he was really big on, like, still to this day in 2025, men being like up there. And that's exactly how it was in this part, because later on it's going to say how his wife at the time, oh, can y'all hear me wheezing? I don't know why I'm wheezing, but at the time, his wife Vashti or whatever, she was hosting a party for the women. So the women are in their own house party and the men in their own house party. So I bet you they got concubines and everything else. And by concubines, in these terms, strippers. Yeah, in 2025 times. But yeah, every man's pleasure. And Vashti the queen made a feast for the women in the royal house, which belonged to King Ahasuerus. Now, I'm reading it from my King James Bible. It's called a Promise Bible. It's pink. You'll see it. I love this thing. Now, what kind of sticks out to me is that in and belonged is italicized. As if, yes, she the queen, but she ain't really got nothing of her own. Hence the fact that they view men more superior than women in these days. Now, on the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Muhammad, Biztha, Horbana, Bigtha, and Abigtha, Zithar, and Carcass, the 7 chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to shew the people and the princess her beauty, for she was fair to look on. Now, let me continue. But the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. Now, her looks didn't get her very far, did it? Because it's going to say that Esther's fair, but it's another word that have to do with Esther being fair. Right? I'm going to get there. In a little bit, I'm going to put I'm not going to put the Bible, I am going to put the Bible down. I'm going to show you my, what I've studied so far, just so I'm not just reading off, I'm actually give you like what I've studied. But I just want to read a little bit about it first, because Esther is so like fascinating to me. Ruth and Esther, to be very specific for one, these are the only 2 books in the Bible that are named after a woman besides Haggai. But these women had like very much roles to play. Even Haggai, they all had a role to play in Jesus coming. It sounds like somebody couldn't come in here, so. Hey.
It's growling. I want some salad.
Oh, you don't want to be in camera? I'll cover you.
Do what?
I said just in case you don't want to be in camera. I'll cover you.
Okay. Do you want to keep these bags? I like these big bags. When my mom comes over, I'm always giving her groceries, and these bags hold them. She goes shopping at my house.
Oh, your mom?
Yeah. You got Ziploc bags, you got mayonnaise, you got ketchup. Yeah, Mom, I got all that. And it's still warm. That's a lot of breadsticks. Hold on, y'all.
Do you mind if I just keep talking?
I don't care.
Okay.
No, I don't mind.
So in the book of Esther, there are 10 chapters. And God does not directly speak to anyone in this book. This is the only book besides Song of Solomon where God's name is not mentioned in any way, shape, or form. So what's crazy about this is Esther was a Jewish orphan, meaning her parents died when she was really young, and Mordecai, which is her uncle, which people think that that's which is her cousin, and people think that that is her uncle, but Mordecai is her cousin, and he took on like her guardian role when he was around like 15 years old. But she is favored everywhere that she goes. So when you think about like her life and her story and how she even got there in the first place, plenty of people go through bad things in life and things of that sort. But if you give it to God, you will see in the end, probably not when you're in the middle of it, definitely not. But you see how in the end of it, it all plays a big role or it plays a part and it can help someone get through their journey as well. So what I like to do when I'm studying the Bible, I like to read through and I ask myself some questions. I'm like, okay, so what is this? What does this mean? And my first question was, who is Ahasuerus? How long did he reign? How far is India from Ethiopia? And what is a province? How long is 104 score days? So I mentioned it earlier, but the he is Xerxes the Great. He is the grandson of Cyrus the Great, the same people that we're talking about in our history books. So, we're just gonna skip down just a little bit. I just want to say that one part. So the king was a giver and also a little sexist, not a little but a lot. As we just mentioned, he had that whole party for the men. The women were there else, and then it says that he was married with wine. So he's drunk at this point and just wants the queen to just come. And at this point, she probably does feel like an object or less than, because it's going to say that the king thought Vashti was fair. But it says later on that not only was Esther fair, but he loved Esther. Now, what happened was it was this big nationwide beauty contest. So around 25 million women the king went through trying to figure out who's going to be his next king, his next queen. So after it was 25 million women, it shrunk down to about 100 women. And out of those 100 women, Esther was picked. Now, Esther is already an orphan. She's Jewish. And at this time, she's just by herself. So imagine, like, out of 25 million women, you are the one who was picked. And you ultimately have one of the greatest roles in freeing God's people. So Vashti was fair to look at, but Esther was favored. And Vashti also didn't respect the king. Yes, I know that you didn't, have these things, but you can see in Vashti and Esther's mannerisms that although neither of their situations were necessarily ideal or even chosen for themselves, they still respected their positions. To deny the king was ultimately like the ultimate sign of disrespect. So I don't even think that the king really would have cared that much if it was just him. But he has these providences and all these people, and this is 25 million women. That's not including the men and the children. So he had to like use her as an example. In between that time of Vashti leaving and Esther coming, it was 7 years before he got another queen. So it was the largest empire in history, estimated about 50 million people, the second great empire after the Babylonian Empire. A large number of Jews were exiled in Babylon, but some remained and settled, but they were scattered. But they were scattered around other areas and everything. So Mordecai and Esther are descendants of the original Jewish captives taken by Nebuchadnezzar 70 years after Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Esther became queen. Now you can see how they were scattered there, because let's go back to Daniel for a second. That's not Daniel's real name. I think their real names are, Shadrach is actually Azariah, Meshach is actually Michelle, and Abednego is actually Hananiah. Now, as you continue to read the Bible and you get more like fluent into people's names and stuff, it's going to make more sense, because for this to be the same exact place where Daniel became, what Daniel was, he was like head leader or something like that. He had a very high position next to King Nebuchadnezzar because he could interpret a dream. But he couldn't interpret that dream himself. He had to get it from God. And then Esther's Hebrew name was Hadassah, which means plant. Well, which means myrtle, which means a plant. Now after that, and it's so crazy because when God plants you somewhere, nobody can like remove you from there. So God will plant you exactly where you need to be. So to plant or to be planted, the verb is placed in the ground, a dark, dirty place, so that you can grow. So oftentimes we think about our trials and our tribulations and we're like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. But you cannot grow if you don't go through anything. You can't become more wise. You can't gain wisdom if you don't go through anything. You cannot pray for wisdom and neglect the obstacles and neglect the trials and neglect the tribulations, because for number one, you're gonna go through them anyways. You might as well reap a harvest from them. And then another verb is placed or fixed in a specified location. Wherever you go, you have to walk in there. If you are a believer in Christ, you have to believe that where you went or where you are, you're meant to be. And sometimes it is very, very hard to make the best out of every situation. And you feel like, well, why me? Why this? Why not you? Jesus got persecuted. Jesus was hung on a cross and he never sinned. Beat to death naked. He never sinned. So if the whole goal is to be like Jesus, it also talks about one of the fruits of the spirit is long suffering. And when you this life in itself is temporary anyways. So with every trial and tribulation, I'm not gonna say take it with a grain of salt, because I done been through some things that had me shaken to the core. And if I didn't have Jesus, I probably wouldn't be here myself. But when you think about you have to grow in a dark and dirty place, you really got to think about it. How do plants grow? How do trees grow? And oftentimes people just see these big tall trees, but there are roots that are way longer, way taller, way thicker than the big trees that you see. So they had to grow down first. So the ground will see your growth before anybody else will. You know your growth on the inside before anybody will see it on the outside. And it's so crazy how God mimics the body with plants in itself. Oftentimes I like to go outside and just like really like admire the sky and the trees and all these things. But if you really look at like our veins and our nervous system, everything kind of like mimics that. And it's so great how a creator like that is just that detail oriented. So now I already told you about the I was wrong. See, this is why you go over your notes. So out of 25 million people, it went to 400 women. 400 women stayed in the palace for 1 year of beautification.
I needed to be in here at that moment.
Yes, ma'am.
Because all that you just said is like me with my child. Like,
yes, ma'am.
I had to come here at that moment. I was feeling that.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, man. My boss was in here. Now we gotta take a moment because y'all heard that. Y'all heard that. My boss. You know what I'm saying? Okay, let me get myself together because things like that just have me so geeked. Because I thought about I was gonna be quiet. I was gonna wait till she left, but she wound up eating her whole meal in here in the first place. But I was on YouTube Shorts, and it was a boy. He went in his room to pray. He forgot to lock the door, and his dad came in, and his dad was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And he was like, "Oh, nothing," but he was praying. And in the caption, it was a verse. It was a verse about something like, "Don't deny your father in front of other people, or he will like deny you." And I remember on my other day when I was just yesterday, and I was on break, and I was walking. I was walking for my break, and I didn't want people to think I was weird for like walking and talking. I'm praying. So I put my phone up to my ear so they would think I'm on the phone. And eventually I just started singing. But right then in that moment, I was going to stop. I was going to wait. And that makes me happy to know like, no, like you're a disciple. But it just made me happy because it's like I didn't want to deny Jesus. And, I decided that I'm not going to. Oftentimes we like draw back or like suck in, because I honestly didn't even know she was a Christian. I didn't even know she believed in God. Truth be told to you. Truth be told. But the fact that I was obedient, and sometimes when we think of obedience, we think of God telling us something audible instead of just doing what we have, doing what we read. And that's what I mean by being a hearer, a doer, and being the word. Like, although I have been legitimately neglecting reading my Bible, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I have made it my business to go to bed with the Bible on at night. I have made it my business to watch sermons. I have made it my business to make sure that my algorithm is showing me stuff about Jesus, because one scripture holds so much impact. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, holds so much weight. And we can't even understand it. We can't grasp it. And that's why it's so important to reread and reread and reread the Bible, because it's not just, you can have the same conversation with somebody over and over and over again, and you'll always have something new to say. We might have the same thing to say, but it just hit different. It just hit different. That also goes back to what I just said. God will plant you exactly where you need to be. My boss said out her mouth, I needed to be in here. I needed to be in here. I needed to neglect my Bible for just a little bit so that I would be encouraged enough to read it on camera for y'all, so that my boss could be in here, so she could get whatever she needed, because she was about to be in tears. I don't know what God is doing. I have no idea. I don't even care. I just know that eyes haven't seen and ears haven't heard all that He has planned for me. Let's get back. Let's get back. Let's get back. Let's get back. So, the 1 year of beautification. A lot of people think that they did things that they didn't want to, but let's be real. You just got captured anyway, so they've been doing stuff they didn't want to the whole book in Esther. So, to me, I thought of looks, smells, etiquette, royalty training. You're just not gonna be, for one, after Vashti, I probably would have ramped up my training for the next queen too. I don't know what he did. But she didn't just look fair, he loved her, and she found favor in his eyes. A poor orphan from former slaves, she was exalted in the highest position at that time, and it was not a coincidence. So, God is at work. Esther followed instructions. She kept her Jewish heritage a secret as Mordecai instructed her to. Esther followed instructions. Ruth followed instructions. I have a problem with following instructions. Jesus, right now, Holy Spirit, help me to follow instructions. I do not know why. I have a rebellious spirit. I will do the exact opposite of what you tell me to do. And that's why, and I have a hard time listening to people, and I have an authority problem. And that's why I cling to Jesus. I cling to Jesus, and I listen to whatever I feel like. And I'm not gonna say feel like. No, truth be told, if I feel like God has told me to do something, I'm doing it. Because if God didn't tell me to do it, He's gonna be the only one to get me out, and He's gonna be the only one to get me in. But I know for a fact God has given me mentors and wise counsel and guidance and things of that sort. So when somebody tells me something and it really just like pricked my heart, I know God spoke through them. I recently, I also watched another video by Amanda Ferguson, and she was like, authenticity is not telling all of your business. Authenticity is knowing who you are to the core and being that. And truthfully, I talk so much, and I feel like I have to share every bit and piece of felt like I had to share every bit and piece of my life to be authentic. And that video definitely helped me. Because you can be authentic with discretion. You can be authentic with a good head on your shoulders. You can be authentic and keep your mouth closed. And that the Lord is helping me with. So, but she followed instructions. Ruth followed instructions. And yeah, that's all I'm going to leave it. Esther became queen by her physical beauty and her charm. I feel like that's important, because I do feel like on a certain level as Christian women, people are always like, modesty is key. Modesty is key. Like, I saw another video of, you'll never be able to compete with the Instagram baddies. For one, honey, I'm not in competition with a single soul. The only thing I'm trying to do is look better than I did yesterday. And you know what? That means, shaving my legs. That means lotioning up. That means brushing my teeth. That means adding a little bit of mascara, making sure that my hair is done looking presentable. But if you think I'm competing with somebody that have their whole entire body out and their booty cheeks hanging out their clothes and their titties up, that's not me. I don't even care because there is no competition for that. You know what I'm saying? And to each his own. But that's you. My goodies is for my man. Yeah. Anyways, so, but physical beauty is an important part. Like, God made you beautiful for a reason. Like, I think oftentimes when we think about, we think about hiding our beauty or hiding ourselves. I'm in a season where to I know I'm coming out of hiding. It's been so many times to where I get a little bit of traction on Instagram, and for whatever reason I would clamp up on the inside and just like not post for a few months, even delete all my pictures. I'm no longer doing that. It feels like, okay, I'm coming out of hiding. I have been trying to make myself small for so long because I personally know I have a great personality, and I'm radiant, and I'm big, and I got big cheeks, and I come in with big smiles, and I laugh, and I enjoy being this person. But I felt like I was persecuted for my personality. I felt like people thought I was dumb because I was nice. I felt like people thought I was goofy because I like to laugh, but in reality, laughter is one of the best medicines. And if you do not know how to laugh, you will have a horrible life. That is the truth. So, and now I had a conversation with my mom, and she was talking about herself, but I feel like she was like, I'm radiant, and like, you're never going to take that away from me. And I was like, I'm radiant, like I'm her daughter. And then there is this, I'm gonna call her a mentor on here, and she was like, I was complaining to her about something. She was like, "What that got to do with you? You're Jaylee." What? Like, I forgot I'm Jaylee, and it was like, but it didn't feel like puffing up of ego. It didn't feel like coming out of pride. It felt like, stop hiding yourself. Stop hiding the jokes that you have. Stop hiding that smile. Stop being standoffish because somebody made you mad. Stop walking around with an attitude. Stop having a stank face. Like, just because you're upset about something, be upset. Don't stay there. Have an attitude. Don't stay in it. You know what I'm saying? You're human, but you're God's child. Like, be regular, boo. So, yeah, I was like, okay, okay, okay. Now we're gonna talk about Mordecai and the people. He is the one that helped Esther, and like, his role was definitely important because for one, he was the one who instructed her of that. But not only did he instruct her, but he continued to look out for her after that. So Mordecai is hanging around. Not only let me get there. Mordecai is hanging around the palace out of concern for Esther. He overhears royal guards planning to kill the king. Again, God will plant you in the right place at the right time. Mordecai tells Esther. Monarchs kept record of acts. Okay, he told Esther. Esther told the king because people were planning to kill the king. The king went and killed them. Boom. So monarchs keep record of acts of loyalty and disloyalty in great detail, rewarding both parties with promotions or deaths. When running a very large empire, rulers realized how important it was to recognize loyalty. So that was important. And then later on in the story, it's going to tell you how, because, okay, Haman tricks the king basically into trying to kill off Esther people. Now, Esther people are the Jews, but the king not only thinks that Esther is fair, he is in love with Esther. Love with nothing. Vashti had nothing on Esther, yeah? So at this point, you don't trick the king into trying to kill his wife's family? That's crazy. So now he had already tricked the king, and the king even gave Haman a go ahead to go ahead and do it. So the king, the same night, the night before he was going to kill everybody, the king is tossing and turning. Mind you, God is never mentioned in his book. How many knows that God wake you up in the morning? God let you go to sleep. God let you breathe. Yeah, right. So the king is tossing and turning. Now, for whatever reason, which we don't know, the king wanted to the king wanted to get the what is the record of like what was going on read to him, like kind of like a nighttime story, I guess. And they go over how Mordecai was the one who helped him get the guards that wanted to kill him. So he's like, what happened? Like, what did we do for Mordecai? Right? Haman, the same guy that wanted to kill. Not only that, Mordecai and Haman were beefing because Mordecai was like, I serve Jesus. I serve God. I'm not bowing down to you. And that's what made Haman even want to kill. He not only wanted to kill Mordecai, he wanted to kill all the Jews because Mordecai ain't do nothing to him. Now I gotta be on break in 5 minutes, so we're gonna continue this. But I'm gonna hit this one part right here and give you something to think about. All right, Haman was an Agagite, yeah? The Agags, their origin came from Agag, the king. Saul did not murder as instructed. Back to follow instructions. As instructed by Agag, as instructed. But Agag was sliced up by Samuel, a Jewish man. A people were formed from his execution, the Agagites. Haman is one. This happened 1,000 years ago. But Haman knew his family history. Now, let's talk about family history here for just a moment. Haman was going so hard for that. And you see how they're trying to take all the black history out of the schools? That's another Bible study or another day. I'm going to just drop that gem. Yeah? This is why Haman hates Mordecai, a Jew, but really all Jews. So we're gonna go over it because I do want to be like, I want to do like a deep dive in depth. I'm gonna start doing a Bible study at least once a week because I love hosting Bible study. I love studying the Bible, and I'm running out of time and I'm rambling. So let's go on to the next point. So Esther risked her life to save her people. During this time, the king was absolute. No one entered his chambers without being summoned. Esther in chapter 4, verse 11. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whosoever, whether man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there was one law of his to put him to death, except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to the king these 30 days. So, Esther was in the right position. Esther was there. Esther was fearful. She feared the king more than she feared God in that moment. But Mordecai, the same guy who helped her get into that position, helped her not only steward it well, but kept her safe in the best way he knew how, had to encourage her. Because although you can be favored, you can be blessed, you can have your head on straight, you still need encouraging sometimes. The best of the best people need encouraging sometimes. I only got 2 minutes left, and we're going to end it here. Hope you enjoyed the Bible study. It's probably going to be like a real like in-depth video with a lot of editing and scriptures to go with it, but I definitely wanted to just come on here and get on live. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. And I'm glad I got to read a little bit about Esther today. So thank you very much. Thank you. And you have a wonderful day.